Hi, my name's Matt and I'd like to welcome you to this Zindiac video, which is part of our MoR Management of Risk Foundation training course. And in this video, we'll be introducing you to the MoR principles and also covering some key MoR terms that relate to those principles. So the first thing to say about the principles is that Axelos haven't just made them up out of thin air. They haven't just kind of put a group of people in a room and said, come up with some MOR principles. They are informed by the corporate governance principles and the international standard for risk management. And that's very much in line with what Axelos do across all their products. So they don't create new things. What they do is they go out into the world and see what works, see what best practice is, and they document it. And that really leads us on to the justification of the principles being universal, self-validating and empowering. They're universal because they've looked at what's used across the universe or across the world, and they're self-validating in that they are what works. So they haven't documented principles that don't work. They've only documented the best practice principles that are proven to work. And they are empowering because when we want to empower someone, we give them clear guidance and they provide clear guidance. So they empower you in terms of managing risk because you should know that they work. They know that other people make them work. So you know that if you follow the principles, you will manage risk effectively. Whether you have a risk management approach or not, whether you follow the MOR process or not, if you follow the principles, you will manage risk well. And they are principles that you can apply in your daily life as well as in your business life, whether you're managing projects or programs or portfolios or whatever it is in business that you need to manage risk. So let's have a look at some of the key terms that we need to understand. So the first one is risk capacity, and that's the total amount of risk that the organisation or subset of the organisation is able to bear. And for most organisations, that will be an amount of risk that even if it impacted, if it came to bear, if the risk became issues, that the organisation could bear and still function as an organisation. It wouldn't represent an existential threat to the organisation. It wouldn't be in danger of putting us out of business. So clearly for some startup organisations, it may be that they choose to accept risk which is beyond their capacity, i.e. if it came to bear, it would put them out of business. And that's where it leads us to risk appetite. So normally risk appetite is less than risk capacity. So the organisation has a capacity for risk and its appetite is less than that. So it's taking less risk than it could potentially take. But for startup organisations, it may be they choose to take more risk than it has really capacity for, knowing full well, making a conscious decision that if it doesn't work out, it'll put them out of business. But they're in a startup situation. Lots of startups fail. They're willing to take that risk. But generally, in most situations, appetite will be less than capacity. And the next key term that we need to understand is risk tolerance. So for a commercial organisation, the shareholders delegate a certain amount of responsibility to the board, who delegate responsibility to the CEO, who delegates responsibility down through the organisation until it gets to you at whatever level you're working at. And you have a scope of control and authority within that scope of control to make decisions. If you can't stay within that scope of control, if you need to step outside in order to achieve your objectives, you are beyond tolerance and you will need to take action. And generally, as a minimum, that will be reporting to a more senior level of management, and risk management is no different. So you will have a scope of control in terms of risk with defined levels of tolerance that you are able to manage yourself without reference to anyone else. If you go beyond those levels or you think you're going to go beyond those levels, then you will need to take some action, which may be just reporting it to a higher level, it may be asking permission, authority from a higher level, it may be something else, but that's where the tolerance levels in. It's part of defining the scope of control. We've got two more terms to look at now: key performance indicator and early warning indicator. And it's important to recognize that neither of these relate to measurement of an actual objective. They are indications that we are moving towards, making progress towards achieving an actual objective. So right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. There are many governments around the world taking action to try and minimize the negative effects of the pandemic. The actual objective is to prevent death, to prevent the loss of life. That's the actual objective. A key performance indicator that indicates we are moving towards that objective, making progress towards that objective, might be the number of people who are vaccinated. If a high proportion are vaccinated, then that might be a very good indicator that we are moving towards a situation where there will be fewer deaths. So an earlier warning indicator might be that when over 80-year-old people were invited to be vaccinated, 95% of them took up the offer to be vaccinated, and that was an early warning indicator to suggest that as we invite younger people to be vaccinated, there'll be a high take-up, and that will help us achieve the KPI, which is maybe 70, 80, 90% of the whole population being vaccinated, which indicates we're making progress towards the actual objective, which is reducing loss of life. So it's step by step by step. A more corporate objective would be increased profit. The KPI could be increased sales. The early warning indicator might be more inquiries from potential customers about our products or services. So if we get more inquiries, we're likely to get more sales. If we get more sales, we can increase profit. We're now going to take our first look at the 8 principles, and you can see they're broken down into 7 enablers, which, if we follow them, will enable us to achieve successful risk management and achieve measurable value, which is the 8th principle. So let's have a quick look at the enablers. Aligns with objectives, fits the context, engages stakeholders, provides clear guidance, informs decision making, facilitates continual improvement, and creates a supportive culture. If we follow those principles, the result will be successful risk management, and we will achieve measurable value. And we will look at each of those principles, all 8, in a separate video in the rest of this section of the course. So join me there. Until you do, have a great day.